Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Welcome to the program. It is, at the moment, 10 a.m. on 12/12/2016. I sit overlooking the skyline of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on a very gray Monday. And I'm loath to know even where to start. I've got to get better at gaining consciousness in the morning and then checking my Twitter and all the other news sources and not like getting so freaked I can hardly get out of bed. It sort of happened again today. The first thing I saw was a Washington Post article that John Bolton, who was our extraordinarily unlikable ambassador to the United Nations, a body that I believe he does not believe in, classic kind of Republican appointee, and who now is rumored to be in line to be Deputy Secretary of State. That would be under the Exxon Mobil CEO, that he claimed on Fox News something even more extraordinary than Trump has said. He said that he thought that the CIA's report of Russian interference with our election could in fact be a false flag made up by the Obama administration. Let me get the direct quote. It's not clear to me, just viewing this from the outside, that this hacking into the DNC and the RNC computers was not a false flag operation. The Washington Post says this is an extraordinary suggestion. You know, I'm seeing that word a lot. Okay, so the Washington Post reporters have to say that is an extraordinary. That's the Washington Post using that term. Here is today's New York Times, I believe. It gets to extraordinary in its second word. An extraordinary breach, it says, has emerged between President-elect Donald Trump and the national security establishment, with Trump mocking American intelligence assessments. Okay, so how do you not find this chilling? I mean, seriously chilling. A former head of the CIA sure as hell finds it chilling. Here's Michael Hayden. To have the President-elect of the United States simply reject the fact-based narrative that the intelligence community puts together because it conflicts with his assumptions. Wow. Let us also recall that this is the president-elect who, unlike any other, again extraordinary, again unprecedented, has refused to take daily national security briefings. Unprecedented, extraordinary, arrogant, and or ignorant, frightening. And to me, if you're not feeling those things, you could well be then part of what Trump is relying on, for there to be just a shrug. Yeah, well, he won, so we'll have to do 4 years of this, without acknowledgement that what is happening to our country and to its government right now is in every way unprecedented. And when unprecedented things happen literally every day, twice a day, 4 times a day, for an American who cares about the survival of this country, not to be paying close attention, is, I think, a dereliction of one's citizens' duties, responsibilities. You become part of the problem. Paul Krugman ends his piece today struggling with what I'm struggling with. I guess all of us, I'm not comparing myself to Krugman, only in that we both work digesting news and then trying to figure it out and then communicating whatever it is we're thinking with our audiences. In that regard, we do the same kind of work. And he's suffering like I'm suffering. He ends his piece today with this: personally, I'm still figuring out how to keep my anger simmering. Letting it boil over won't do any good, but it shouldn't be allowed to cool. This election was an outrage, and we should never forget it. That's where I am. That's exactly where I am. And if you turn, for whatever reason, from the outrage that is what you should be feeling, then you're going to be part of the problem of maintaining our country and its integrity. Back to my little typing thing. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. Now is the time. Never before in my lifetime. And I hate to tell you, that's like decades and decades and decades and decades. That's scores. That's 70 and some. Never in my lifetime, and I've paid attention all my life. I won the Time Current Events contest statewide that was held in 1961. So when I was a kid, I would read Time magazine like cover to cover. I followed events around the world. I've always had a hunger for trying to understand what's happening. What's going on? And so any normalization, any sort of relaxation about this particular administration is not acceptable. Let me share some numbers with you, if I can find them. They're mind-boggling. This is Pew Research, There has not been a president-elect who has received lower marks for his cabinet choices and other high-level appointments. Ever. So, like, if you're freaking out every day as you hear the next horror, the rumor today, of course, is that, God, what's Perry's first name? Former governor of Texas. Rick Perry, who famously couldn't remember the names of the cabinet departments he wanted to absolutely destroy, finish off, kill, if he were to become president. The one he couldn't remember was energy. That's the one where he went, oops. He, of course, now is rumored to be the leading candidate to take over the Department of Energy. Here is what the Pew report found. This was taken last week, okay? Only 37% of Americans view Donald Trump as well qualified. So what does that tell you? 37% of Americans, 2/3 of Americans do not consider him qualified, and yet he's about to become the president of the United States. 65% of Americans say the term reckless applies to Donald Trump, the man who will soon have access to the nuclear code. 62% say he has poor judgment. And 68% say he is hard to like. So here is an unlikable, reckless, unprepared, unqualified man, according to 2/3 of Americans, and he hasn't even begun his tenure. Again, the word is unprecedented. Whoa. So, guys, I can't ignore it. I can't ignore it and sleep at night. I can't ignore it. I'm not sleeping at night as it is, but I can't ignore it and sleep at night, or I can't ignore it and look at myself in the mirror in the morning. The most chilling thing I've seen is that now there is some belief. I don't think it's as concretized as some of the other stuff that the defense agencies and intelligence agencies have found about the Russian hacking. But they say that they do think they hacked the RNC as well. So this is interesting. If they hacked the RNC, then they've got stuff. That stuff could be used to blackmail Republicans. Think about it. Hello?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, Lynn, I heard you last week or whatever talking about, you get tired of talking about the Trump and all that. I say I disagree with, because it's depressing and it's negative. I say no.
It's necessary.
You have to talk about him every time you're on the internet.
Yeah.
Because we can't let anything get by, and the Democrats need to come out and say, our prime objective is, just like the Republicans, to make Donald Trump a one-term president. I think it's time to take a play out of the Republicans' playbook and start playing those cards. They did quite well with it, so it's time to copy whatever they did, because what we're doing is not working. This working with him, yeah, there might be some things you might be able to work with him on, but I kind of doubt it, because there's always something in the background that's going to
Yeah. I mean, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. And what's particularly extraordinary is this guy has already destabilized our relations with China big time. And he isn't even the president. He has already openly mocked our own American intelligence system. And he is soon to be the head of that. He has taken Russia's side over our intelligence. He has appointed one Russian lover, Putin lover, after another. I mean, this guy is, if he ain't a Manchurian candidate, I would like to know who the hell would be. He's unbelievable. Helped in his election by the Russians, and then to appoint as a Secretary of State a man with absolutely no experience in government, but one who knows Vladimir Putin really well, and in fact has gotten the highest honor from Putin that can be given to a non-Russian. And this thing, this medal of whatever the hell it is often given to people who turned out to be double agents. You look at the history of the recipients, people who have betrayed their own country for Russia. That's the kind of person who gets this medal from Vladimir Putin.
Now, they're trying to get 37 electors to go along with Democrats to deny Trump of his presidency. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, I'll tell you what. If that were to happen,
wouldn't be that hard.
I don't know that well, I think it would be. You really think there's 37 electors willing to do that?
Oh, this woman that was on...
Well, that's one.
No, I'm just saying she says she can do it.
Okay.
So I'm going to give her credibility.
Well, I don't know. But here's the thing. If that were to happen, I'm not sure we wouldn't end up...
We'll end up with a Republican, of course.
No, in a civil war.
Oh, well, maybe that. I don't know if it's good or bad. I could see denying them, but then we're stuck with somebody else that...
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, he is something beyond the pale, and the people that he has put in charge of all these governmental agencies and that he has surrounded himself with are absolutely a rogues gallery of corporatists. These are, and that the little people who put him in think these guys are going to help them is just...
Well, you never hire a billionaire to solve middle-class, working-class problems. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. He's the billionaire that's been screwing you. Now he's going to work for you? Yeah, right. I don't believe that. I say it's some oceanfront property in Arizona. I mean, come on, people.
Jesus. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. I mean, there has never been anyone elected to the presidency who will take the oath of office with the majority of Americans not liking him, not finding him qualified, and frankly, afraid of him. Something has gone terribly wrong.
There is a little encouraging signs with Lindsey Graham.
And, McCain.
And somebody else. So, and Rand Paul, they're going to fight him on some of these nominations. So that's one good thing.
Well, what the country needs is a lot more Republicans to value their nation over their party, to value their nation over political power. We need a lot more men and women of conscience and courage to stand up now. God help us. Thank you for your call.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I mean, he's not even president yet, and now it is not unusual to read headlines like I did in today's local paper. This blew me away. Front of the local section of the Post-Gazette. Here's the headline. Jewish Federation starts security initiative. And I thought, what? And the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh, which is an umbrella organization for all Jewish organizations, yada, 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 has hired an FBI agent, soon to be retired, to lead the planning, directing, and coordinating of the protection and security of the Jewish community and its organizations. What? There has never been such a position. There has never been a perceived need. The Jewish community in Pittsburgh, and by reading the article, it's clear they're not alone. That other Jewish communities they're not taking any chances. They can stick their finger in the wind. They smell stuff. They feel stuff. I've told you, hair on the back of my neck stands up every once in a while now. These are not unserious people who run this federation. And to think that they need an entirely new position. They're being proactive, but in a way reactive, and reactive to what the Trump election has begot. I use the word again. Unprecedented. The New York Times did a piece, I think it was yesterday, about the so-called alt-right, again trying to explain it to its readers. And I just said the so-called alt-right. The New York Times said this: the deceptively benign phrase alt-right. And they say this deceptively benign phrase now peppers the national conversation. And often in ways that play down its fundamental beliefs, which are unbelievably hateful and racist and misogynistic and xenophobic and anti-Semitic and all of those things. And the term alt-right, its prevalence now in your newspaper, on your television, a word you never even heard of a year ago. The fact that it is so prevalent now tells you again something, because it coincides with the rise of Donald J. Trump. So, alt-right, Jews hiring FBI agents for security for their communities. And the New York Times went on about the fact that the alt-right is not your father's old racists. This is a group of younger people, well-dressed, no hoods, they prefer khakis, although they do have a haircut. They do have a haircut, and they call it a fasci, short for fascist. They call the haircut a fasci, and you will see the guys. It's a way, again, it's a way for them to recognize each other. And if by some reason you wear your hair this way, guys, you might want to consider a redo, because now a haircut is going to be a clear indicator of where you stand. The haircut, if you look at Richard Spencer, he's pretty much the guy who came up with the term, and he's their very respectable looking leader. it's an undercut style where you've got more stuff going on the top and nothing, like pretty much shaved on the edges. It was once popular among Hitler Youth, and it was become a way for American fascists to signal each other. It's called a fasci. Okay? We'll get to know all these things. Believe me, we're heading into a world where we've never been before. Caller, hello.
Hello. And again, I'll wish you a good morning.
Mm-hmm.
As it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to qualify that greeting from now until we return to some semblance of normality and sanity in our nation's government. I think Jewish organizations who are hiring FBI agents may want to make certain they actually are ensuring their own safety and security, given that the FBI's interference in the recent election is one of the reasons we are currently in this situation, and they feel they need to take on additional security.
Yeah.
As you said, this is not a situation which is in any way normal. We've had a government organization going rogue and sandbagging the Democratic campaign. We've also had the Russian interference in the election. The Russian interference in the election on behalf of one candidate. And you have a radicalized Republican Congress who is totally okay with that. The same people who have always accused liberals of being unpatriotic to the point of being useful idiots for hostile foreign powers.
What most startling? Yeah, stop and think about what Republicans have always stood for. If there's a party that's been
nothing,
that's
they're
been
opportunists. They stand for the oligarchies serving the interests of the absolute elite financially in our nation and our world, and in some cases for a dominionist, throwback Christian philosophy.
Right, I agree. But and because Putin's Russia is not a communist state as much as it is an autocratic oligarchy, right?
Right.
It's a perfect match with Donald Trump and these Republicans. Perfect match. Do you know Ronald Reagan is spinning in his grave in California? He really is.
I mean, I thought W was the absolute nadir, the abyss of what we were going to, what was going to come to be realized in this nation in terms of a government leader. I mean, he combined the worst qualities of many of the other terrible presidents we've had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But despite his incompetence and Cheney's absolute Machiavellianism and deception, that administration never came out and demagogued Muslims, even after the 9/11 attack.
No, quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. The man actually went and attended a mosque service.
Yeah, I know. Well, what did he know? Listen, I've always, my years have taught me one thing. Don't ever say it can't get worse. Don't ever say it, because invariably it does. I am not kidding. In every way in my life, in my professional life, what I've seen happen to, my profession and television and radio. And when I think of what we used to think was, this is the end. I mean, this is, and now you wistfully wish you could go back to what you thought was unbearable, because where things are now, the
institution, and clearly we have broken institutions. The Electoral College is broken.
Yes.
If it was broken in 2000, when you had 500,000 more voters casting votes for Al Gore, then how immeasurably more it is now, when it's climbing to 3 million more casting votes for Hillary Clinton.
No, I know it's insane. It's insane. We have
a broken media,
right,
that couldn't deal with a candidate who defied every norm. I'm not even saying that he and his little minions like Kellyanne Conjob lie. They're beyond liars. They place no value on truth.
No, truth? No. There's one thing they value. Winning. There's one thing they value.
If in one
winning.
breath telling the truth
power
hates them and serves them, they'll do it.
That's right.
In the next breath, taking a position 180 degrees opposed to the truth,
no problem.
For their purpose, they do it.
No, there's no problem. I know. It's breathtaking. It's breathtaking, and we better just. I was going to say get used to it. No, I mean we've got to stop reacting as if what. No, just assume this, and be. I go back to Krugman. Keep your anger at a simmer. Don't let it boil over. This is the pace yourself part, but don't let it cool. Because
we still have to live our lives.
Yes, exactly right. You gotta embrace your life now and live it. But be serious about what's happening in any way that you can. Jump in and push back. You do it. For someone who's never gotten in touch with their elected representatives, start making a point of letting them know your outrage. If enough pals in Congress become aware that 2/3 of the American people are freaked out and are ready to do something, then maybe even they will grow some spine, and maybe even they will start to stand up. We have got to make ourselves known and heard and felt. There is no sitting this baby out. I got to go. Thank you. Thank you for your call. Bye. So back to this alt-right stuff. So Trump begets, the Pittsburgh Jewish Federation hiring an FBI guy for a position they've never felt the need for, securing the Jewish community here. Alt-right, you're hearing about left and right, and that is a direct result of Donald Trump and his embrace of many of the very things that these guys have been promulgating from their dank basements. But now they're out in the light. And as I said, they understand that people recoil with burning crosses and swastikas and certain language. So they've cleaned things up. And they use new coded kinds of slurs and winks and nods. And for those not paying attention, you do so at your own peril. The New York Times reports that the factions within the alt-right ranks can differ on any number of subjects, on whether or not they're bigger on white supremacy or white nationalism, or they're always squawking about what they call the JQ. Here's another term that you should know. They simply say JQ. What does that mean? The Jewish question. And the foot soldiers of this movement are not the old guys in the KKK hoods, not even David Duke, but these are mostly younger men, okay? Obviously white. Younger men, and they come from different online cultures, including a lot of conspiracy theorists. And then the Times says, and also from misogynistic parts of the internet, known as the manosphere. So that's where they're... Okay, so they're misogynistic, anti-Semitic, racist, xenophobic, white, young guys. Here's one speaking. We are almost intoxicated. We don't have any power, but now we're close enough to smell it. So, Trump, by the way, has brushed off the alt-right, that saying this is nonsense. He has actually denied the existence of such a movement. I quote, this is from a CNN, "Nobody even knows what it is. This is a term that was just given that, well, frankly, there's no alt-right or alt-left." That's from your president-to-be. So they also mentioned, just imagine 4 years ago, 8 years ago, ever, at any other time in American history, when a presidential candidate would be found to be the darling of white supremacists. That would be the end of the campaign. That would be the end. They'd be finished. They'd be done. They'd be toast. But this is a new age, obviously. It did nothing to harm him. Trump went unscathed, even though he retweeted things from sites like White Genocide TM, who that's a tweeter who lists his location as Jew-America. What's happened to us? Another little thing you might not have seen, little tiny thing I saw. General Motors is under fire after a casting call for a Cadillac ad sought members of the alt-right movement. What? You're selling Cadillacs and you're doing a casting call and you ask for alt-right people? Here's what it said. They were looking for, quote, any and all real alt-right thinkers and believers for a commercial? Of course, Cadillac has... Cadillac did not authorize or approve a casting notice for an alt-right role in a commercial. We condemn and are seeking immediate answers, and any casting companies involved will be... Welcome to your new America, and he ain't even president yet. Steve writes, I agree with your take on the Trump presidency. We can't just sit back while his administration strips our personal liberties. Did you see Netanyahu on 60 Minutes last night? He indicated that he knows Trump and thinks the Israeli-U.S. relationship will improve under his administration. Well, that remains to be seen. And no, I did not see it, so I can't comment. Ansel writes, the entire election season has been marked with the words unprecedented, unbelievable, and extraordinary. How long ago was it? Was it almost a year ago that we started seeing unprecedented when we're taught it's never unprecedented? And that was just what he was doing in the primary campaign. And to think he is going to be exactly the same as the President of the United States. Ansel writes, I'm hoping that those same three words will also describe the 35 days between now and January 20th. Is it so much of a stretch to imagine that something unprecedented, unbelievable, and extraordinary could happen that would prevent Trump from becoming president. I was thinking of that when I was lying in my bed this morning. I was thinking that. None of us can assume anything anymore. We are living in a just roiling reality. And so, Ansel, I agree with you. Anything that happens, I wouldn't be surprised anymore. Everything is destabilized now. And if the Electoral College or something else intervenes and Trump somehow doesn't take office, yes, it would be unbelievable, unprecedented, extraordinary, but not unbelievable. Not really. Not really. Everything is believable now. Anything can happen. You want to live in history? You're living in it. You want to, you look at history and you see how somebody, living in a country when their lives seem relatively normal, but there's stuff happening in capitals and stuff and words being spoken here and there, and then bang, it all becomes impossible to ignore and your life is thrown into tumult. Well, I think those are the times we're living in. Expect anything. Etzel says maybe it's hopeful thinking on my part, but let's take a page from the GOP playbook and just keep throwing shit against the wall and see what sticks. Denise writes, you only need to take a look at the teenage students displaying Confederate flags at Plum High School to see who belongs to the next generation of alt-right. Yeah, so students at Plum High School came wearing Confederate flags, on their clothing. At first, the high school did nothing. Understandably, actually, as a member of the ACLU, they would say it's free expression. It's noxious, but free expression. That's what the school initially said, and then they said, unless it disrupts, something that starts disrupting our school day, that's not acceptable. You can't wear things that are going to create disruption. And then I guess it got to the point where it was. Let's talk about the parents who see their kid walk out the door with a Confederate flag. Well, the parents are probably wearing it too. Wonderful. So, what else we got? Oh my God. There was this chilling story. Again, if you don't cast your eyes beyond our shores, you're not going to be sort of ready for what's coming our way from the Russians, for instance. And there was an interesting piece about what Russia does to people it wants to take down, and it often involves hacking. They've gone after their own citizens who are in exile, who they want to, people who are against the Putin regime and maybe trying to destabilize it. They go after these guys so brutally. And there were some stories. There's one guy in particular, Vladimir Bukovsky. He's a 73-year-old Soviet dissident. And they pretty much got him. He's in London. They didn't have to kill this one. What they did is they planted on his computer child porn stuff. He has been arrested. His reputation is destroyed because over in Russia, they're showing him being arrested and taken. See, he's a child porn child porn purveyor. They do this to people all the time. They use hacking to destabilize, to destroy individuals. No target is too small. No attack too petty. And they've got so many people over there that are doing this crap that listen to this. On the dark web, which is an area of the internet that I guess you can't get onto unless you have special software and authorization codes and who the hell knows what else. Russian hackers openly offer to destroy anybody for a price. In other words, you want to destroy someone? For $600, there's a Russian hacker who will do it for you. Here's one of the ads. I'll do anything for money. You want to ruin your opponent's business or private persons you don't like? I can ruin them financially or get them arrested. Whatever you'd want. If you want someone to get known as a child porn user, no problem. The price, he said, was as little as $600 per job. Hacking is not only a good way that Russia uses to get real information, like, looking at what's going on with the emails at the DNC, but what they really like to do is not take stuff as much as plant stuff. Change things a little bit here. You can take somebody down by planting just a little thing. It's hard to know it just looks like it's part of the whole. They broke into, the Russians broke into a Lithuanian computer when Lithuania was having elections. They didn't steal a thing, but they planted bogus reports on its website that its pro-American president had worked as an escort while a student in Leningrad during something. They just besmirched that. That destabilized that election. They do this all the time. But Donald Trump says they're not doing it. So I guess he says that's ridiculous. So I guess we should listen to our president. Smart remark here from a piece in the New York Times in the arts section today. You can't get away from Trump. Trump was a lead story in the business section of the New York Times today, on the front page of the news section, also front page arts section. Had something to do with Trump, which of course is his dream. To be the biggest person in the world. He's done it. This lunatic has done it. And what does this guy do? He watches TV. He doesn't just like to star in TV. He likes to watch it. We found that out. We found out he forgot that he said he would save those jobs at Carrier. He flat out admitted that he'd forgotten about it until he saw himself on a television show saying he was going to do it. And he thought, geez, I don't know. But it was on TV, so it's true. Here's what the Times says. He's not just the guy who stars all over television these days. He's the ultimate television viewer. Last year, he told NBC's Chuck Todd that he got his military advice by watching, quote, the shows. You remember that? Todd is saying, well, where do you get your information about defense and security issues? Well, I watch the shows, was his response. That was it. That's where he gets it from. He scarcely reads. Everybody knows that. He sleeps a scant few hours a night, and by all reports, what he's doing is watching television constantly, preferring programs about him. And at this point, the New York Times says, what isn't about him? So that's why the tweets come, because he knows SNL's going to do something with him. He's got to watch it. He knows the morning shows are going to be talking about him. He has to watch, and then he reacts. He sees some poor regular guy saying something on a show that's, not complimentary to him, and he tweets, and all of a sudden that guy is getting harassed and threatened. The Times says, so to understand Trump is to realize that he's not just a TV celebrity. He is, in a strange meta way, a spectator at his own performance. For the next 4 years at least, we are going to all be living in a television show that Mr. Trump is simultaneously starring in, consuming, and live tweeting. Correct. I mean, it's been noted the way he's handled his, deciding who's going to be in his cabinet looks a lot like The Bachelor. Even the candlelight dinner with one of the possibilities. Romney. All of this. It's just classic. Jeez. Hard to believe, but it's happening. At this point in a transition, a president-elect is usually delving into intelligence he has never before seen and learning about the CIA and national security agents' abilities. Mr. Trump, instead, is mocking American intelligence assessments and saying that he doesn't need to be told the same things over and over again. No, not ordinary times, guys. Not at all. Here's an interesting little bit. So we still haven't seen. Now we know why he never would have let us see his tax returns. His tax returns show so much involvement with Russian oligarchs. It's a joke. And now we got his Secretary of State, I guess, going to be ExxonMobil, who has been trying to get this humongous deal with Russia, but that's been screwed up because of the sanctions we put on Russia with their invasion of Crimea and Ukraine. These guys will come in. They're going to lift those sanctions and let ExxonMobil go play in Russia, which will be wonderful for Putin. So it's not just that, but then all these other things, like just almost across from the White House is that the old post office, which now is a Trump hotel. And he doesn't own that building. He leases it. That building is owned by us, the American taxpayer. Mm-hmm. And it's the General Services Administration of the government that oversees the real estate. They have leased it to Donald Trump's organization for 60 years. He has a 60-year lease on that post office. Listen to what the lease says, because somebody got the lease. It's public information. The lease with the General Services Administration says this, quote, "No elected official of the government of the United States shall be admitted to any share or part of this lease or to any benefit that may arise therefrom." What? The lease flat out says that Donald Trump can't have this rental. You can't be clearer. No elected official of the government of the United States shall be admitted to any share or part of this lease or to any benefit that may arise therefrom. As you know, countries are falling all over themselves to book events and rooms at Trump's hotel. All that money going into his family and his pocket. And it flat out says in the lease, this is against the law. If he were to transfer the lease to a company, let's say, owned by his children, that ain't going to clear it up because they are not independent of him. And according to the language, the profits they derive from the lease would be benefiting him too. So they'd still be, not kosher. But then think about this, because as President Trump, he's going to have the power to appoint the director of the General Services Administration. So that will put the GSA in the position of negotiating a lease with the president and his family while they are employed by the president and his family in his governmental capacity, which is why you have clauses in leases that say things like elected officials of the government shall not be admitted to any share or part of this lease. This is one little thing. You tell me that that's not absolutely against the law. That lease should be terminated. Unbelievable. I mean, I could do 5 hours on this kind of stuff. 5 hours pointing out all of these little, from the minute this guy puts his hand on the Bible and his right hand up and says he will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, he'll essentially have perjured himself. He will already be flouting that very Constitution. He has already done so many impeachable things that one swoons. Okay, obit of the day. Proper way to end. The seesaw. Or the teeter-totter. Whatever you called it. Don't you remember as a kid? God, that was fun. Although there was always somebody who was trying to knock you off it. By bang! As you... and down you come and crash, bang. That was the fun of it. But of course now, you can get hurt. So, get this. In 2000, 55% of playgrounds all around the country had a seesaw. So, more than half had a seesaw or a teeter-totter. By 2004, just 4 years later, they were almost all gone. Just 11% of playgrounds in 2004. So you can bet now. Anyone know where a teeter-totter is or a seesaw? The New York Times went looking. They found one. One old one. A board on a fulcrum with a little thing you hang on to. They found one in one park. And stop and think, by the way, if you're driving in your car and you see a sign, a road sign that warns you there's a playground ahead, what is the graphic, the universal sign for a playground? It's a teeter-totter. It's a seesaw. It is, and two little kids on it. Well, they're going to have to change it because in America, no one will know what that is. There's playgrounds that have already done the monkey bars in, the whirling little merry-go-roundy things, slides, all these things. Well, of course, kids can get hurt in life. That's what it's called. So this continuing child-proofing of childhood is so robbing children. Listen to what this, here's a physical therapist writing, saying seesaws are like part of how a kid learns how to navigate. It actually, little kids, when they're doing it, their brains are wiring. By rapidly moving the child through vertical space, seesaws provide input to a child's vestibular system or balance regulation in a way that no other thing can. And children learn strength and coordination when they hit the ground and push themselves back up. So a seemingly simple plaything actually provides so many important sensory experiences for children. Oh, but kids do get hurt. Yeah. Oh. Between 2009 and 2014, the top 3 pieces of equipment associated with emergency room visits were: number 1, monkey bars. Number 2, slides, swings and slides. Oh, swings, number 2. Slides, number 3. Monkey bars, teeter-totters, 2% of all injuries. But, of course, there aren't many around anymore for kids to get hurt on, so that probably lessen those numbers. Boy, am I glad I'm not a kid. Boy, am I glad I had a 1950s childhood with concrete playgrounds and all of these now banned pieces of equipment. Yeah, we got hurt, but we lived to tell the tale. We were free. We were exploring. We were learning how to be and learning that the world is not safe. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Maybe my sister Susan will provide us some relief tomorrow. I have no idea. But as for you, enjoy your day and figure out, just like Krugman, me, all of us, going to have to figure out how we balance all of this so that we keep our lives but keep on constant alert and be willing to speak out. These are not normal times. These are frightening times. If you're not afraid, you're not paying attention. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.